Welcome everyone to the February 2019 JB Media Digital Drop-In. We are excited to have everyone here today. This is Sarah, the lead instructor of the JB Media Institute, and I'm here with our co-founder, Justin Bellamy.
Hey Sarah, hey everyone.
So today we're going to be talking about the topic of how to quantify search engine authority for your website. And we're going to be digging into a lot of different details. So I want to remind everybody, if you haven't joined us for Digital Drop-In before, we will be taking questions through the chat as we go along. And we will be recording this session and sharing that recording with everyone via email after we are finished today. So if you have additional questions later, feel free to connect with us and reach out, and feel free to use the chat. I'll be monitoring that as we go along. So there's a couple of announcements I want to make to get us started. I know some of you are familiar with the JB Media Institute, but for those of you who are not, I just wanted to give you a quick minute or two about what the JB Media Institute is and what we do. So this is our core team. It's Justin, Jenna, and I. We work together pretty much every day running our online classroom and managing a number of different trainings. The JB Media Institute provides a number of different things, including online training programs, in-person workshops and events, private consulting, public speaking and keynotes, and then a lot of really specific custom training programs for different groups, companies, organizations, and so forth. So we do have an online school, but we've got a lot more going on than just that. And we really focus with working on a number of different students across industries and locations, but many of our students are focused on marketing and communications. And then we do have some custom classes and programs that we've developed for tourism businesses, local brick and mortar companies, and health and wellness businesses. And Justin and I both have a background in nonprofit as well as social impact and purpose-driven marketing. So I know some of you are already familiar, you don't need this information, but some of you are also new. So I wanted you to have this in your documentation. So if you also have any questions about our programs, please feel free to reach out. And I have listed for everyone the different things that we have coming up. So we have a new program launching online this month. It's our core program where you learn SEO, social media, public relations, and advertising. And then we also have some intro courses that are more self-guided that you can take and kind of pay each month and do it in your own time. So we have an intro to content marketing and an intro to tourism and local marketing. And then if you're in the Asheville area, we will have a half-day workshop coming up on March 22nd. So you have links to all this information. If you're looking for how to put together some additional education coming this spring, please consider us and feel free to, again, reach out and ask us any questions that you have about our programs. So, like I said, now I want to dig into really how do we quantify search engine authority. One of the things that we've been talking about with our students on a lot of our live webinars each week has to do with how SEO has changed, how search engine optimization has become a more complex field of work. And I think one of the things that people struggle with the most is really understanding how do they know that they are doing well on Google or Yahoo or Bing or any other search engine? How can they quantify doing well with actual data so that they have benchmarks and goals that they can use on a regular basis? And how can they really identify out of all the different things out there what matters most as far as reporting? So you're going to notice we're going to go through a lot of different pieces of data that I feel are important to quantifying search engine authority and really figuring out if your website, where it kind of falls in the spectrum of performance. And, I want to encourage you, you don't necessarily have to, use every single one of these pieces of data to define your success. You may pare it down, especially if you're a smaller business or organization in the beginning, to just a few things that you want to use to quantify your success and how well your website is performing on Google especially. But I just want you to keep that in mind because it can seem overwhelming at first, but again, you want to just really pay attention to what these different pieces of data are about, what kind of things they actually quantify, and then decide what things apply to you now. And as your website grows, there may be things that also apply later. So I want to start first by talking about Google Analytics, because Google Analytics is a tracking system that many different businesses are currently using. And they have some things that I think are key to essentially understanding how well you're doing from an SEO perspective and whether or not some of the strategies that you're using are producing some kind of result. In Google Analytics, there's a few different things that I pay attention to that I think can broadly be applied to almost any website. And Google Analytics is really tracking, most importantly, your organic search traffic, which is the amount of website traffic that you're getting from visitors that started on search engines like Google, Yahoo, and Bing. So outside of things like email traffic, social media traffic, people who just knew your website and went directly to it, people who clicked on a link from the chamber or a newspaper website or an ad on a website. Outside of all that, when people just searched in Google, Yahoo, Bing, or other search engines, we can see that flow of traffic directly through Google Analytics. So again, I know a lot of you have Google Analytics, and when you get this recording, you'll get these slides as well. And I've just highlighted where you can find this information inside the system. So if you're not used to looking at it, that you have kind of a map on how to get there. So most everything that you want to explore, typically when you're doing marketing on your website, is going to be in this acquisition section, especially when you're looking to answer questions about what channels are driving traffic to your website. So you can see here, if we do acquisition, all traffic channels, we then get a list of the different ways in which we're receiving website traffic. And organic search, if your website is especially being found on Google, Yahoo, and Bing and other search engines, organic search is going to sit higher up. You can see here that with this particular website, about 62% of their traffic from this time frame came from search engines. And then smaller percentages came from things like social media or email marketing. There's a couple things I want you to pay attention to here. One is the column for users and one is the column for sessions. And I think it's just important to be aware that users really represents closer to the number of people that came through to the website, and sessions is more kind of the total amount of pages that they visited or times that they looked at the website. So just to understand that difference, sessions is not necessarily accurate. You can have one user that creates multiple sessions, right? So similar to page views. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're trying to get a handle on the number of people that are coming through organic search. When you first click on organic search to look at the data here, you're going to see that they have a keyword column that is automatically defaulted as the first thing that you see. So it's here and then it has keyword at the top. You'll notice though, 98% of the information here does not have a keyword provided. Another 0.08% is not set. So the truth is the keywords that you see here are not really valuable from a data perspective because it represents typically less than 2% of the searches coming from the search engines. So there's other tools we're going to talk about that track your keyword information. On Google Analytics, you're not really going to pay attention to this particular tab at the top or this column. But what you can do is see the source by clicking on the tab here. That tells you which search engine drove the traffic. And then you can also click on the landing page tab. And this landing page tab basically is telling you which pages of your website are essentially overall performing the best on organic search. So really source and landing page, I think, are the most important tabs here in understanding which content or pages of your website are performing well. And I think most of the time you can look at the source, but you're going to see Google is the most dominant source of search engine traffic. But again, this whole section I think is really valuable if you're doing your own SEO, if you're expecting to see results of some kind. One of the first results that you can be looking for is increases in organic search traffic. Because if you have an increase of search traffic from the search engines, you're essentially going to be able to credit at least some of that with possibly the work that you're doing over time. And it's not something that you're going to see happen in a month or 3 months. It's typically something you're going to see, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months out. As you look at that organic search, you're going to see that graph going up because you're increasing the amount of search engine traffic that you get. Now, Justin, I wanted you to talk a little bit about, and we're going to show the other way that you look at the landing pages as well under behavior, but I was hoping you could share a little bit about content marketing, and I know your team does a lot of looking at the landing pages and how they're performing in order to help quantify success. Can you talk about how you do that?
Yeah, we often do a couple of things, and we often use data from a different tool because we want to know. It's more important to us a lot of times when we're doing SEO work on the strategy side to understand what keywords our clients are ranking for, but not on the first page or not above the top half of the first page. But what we do occasionally export often like the blog section or one section of the site from this type of a report to determine which pages are doing the best. One example of that is a project we're working on this month. We've been blogging for about 4 years now for Visit Cherokee, North Carolina, and we're going to be doing some work to take a different SEO approach and go back to some old blogs that are doing well and update them, add some additional content, add some additional SEO strategy, and then republish them as current rather than writing entirely new blogs this year. Normally we write about 30 to 35, I think between 30 and 35 blogs per year for them as our contract. And we've been doing new blogs every year. In some cases we blog about the same event year after year with new blogs. And leave the old ones up. And so this year we're going to mix new blogs with updates, and what we're going to use a strategy similar to what you just showed to help figure out which blogs are doing the best. But we want to make sure we filter the report by search traffic because we send a lot of traffic to the blogs from social media, and we don't want to overemphasize focusing on pages that got a ton of traffic from Facebook. Because what we're aiming for with our updates is more search traffic. So we want to use that filter tool inside of analytics to only show the number of entries or number of page views from organic search, which is exactly what you're talking about in this presentation.
Yeah, exactly. So just if we go back and take a quick look at that, I think, especially when you're developing content or you have existing content that you want to see do better, you should be able to see that movement directly in here when you're looking at the landing pages.
Yeah.
So there is also another way to look at landing pages inside of Google Analytics, and this basically comes under the behavior section. And landing pages in Google Analytics, because I know that phrase is often used to describe a lot of different things. These are really pages on your website that are receiving traffic, and they're the pages where people entered the website, typically. So I think, a lot of times you'll see in landing pages, it's not just your homepage that people entered through. They entered through lots of different pages on the website. And you can use the other sections of Google Analytics along with what we call secondary dimensions to get kind of a different perspective on this outside of just going through the organic search view. So if you go into behavior, you'll see here on the left, there's a section called site content. And then you have this kind of options of how you view the content, and you can choose landing pages, and it will take you to this larger kind of graph showing you sort of more in general all of the landing pages of the website. And I think this is related to what you said. This doesn't really differentiate right now search engine traffic versus social media.
Right.
You're looking at more of the broader landing pages of your website. Again, you'll see things like, sessions, new users, that's the number of new people that hit the page, bounce rates, how long people stayed on the page. I like looking at that information because sometimes, especially the average session duration, if the page was really designed to hold people there, I want to see that. And then if you've set up analytics goals, you may also have some conversions. So we can not only analyze whether or not people are hitting this page that we want them to hit in a general sense, but when they got to that page, did they complete a goal if we have set it up for that page? And so there's a lot of different ways that you can really see the effectiveness here of your landing page. The other option that you have inside of Google Analytics is the secondary dimensions. And so this is where from the behavior section, I can say that I'm looking at the landing pages and I want to see a secondary dimension of the source and medium. And so I can add that, and then it's going to start to highlight for me in that source column what things came from Google and organic search, what things came from direct traffic, email, whatever else we've got going on. So this allows me to then sort of scan through those landing pages and really see which ones are getting picked up by Google. And I have a lot of other options in here too. So I can go through these secondary dimensions and add additional columns for a lot of different other pieces of data if I want to understand different layers of what was going on these landing pages. So if you've never explored the secondary dimensions, this is something you might want to dig into. And it does take a while to sort of figure out what pieces of data you want to put together. So keep that in mind. Throughout all of Google Analytics, you can use this part of the system, but you have to really say, in order to quantify success, we want to have these pieces of data to see which pages performed the best, and you have to know how to combine them. So if you're newer to analytics, it might take a while for you to learn what all the pieces of data are, what the options are, and then from there you can start to think about how you would put primary and secondary dimensions together. But you can see again, we have all these additional columns that we're used to seeing in this section where we see sessions, new users, bounce rates, average session duration, and then again, if we're using goals, we will see those as well. And if you've set up a number of different types of goals throughout your website, the interesting thing is you'll have a drop down. So even though right now it's showing us goal 1, we can use that drop down to view additional goals as well. So again, once you're used to learning the system, you'll start to understand how you get these different views of different things. And this is just a screenshot where I've annotated exactly what I'm talking about. So I've added the secondary dimension. Here's this column that we've added that shows me Google Organic attached to the landing pages. And then I can see the goals if I'd like to. The other things in Google Analytics that I think can help you quantify how well your website is performing overall from an authority perspective are a little more abstract, but I think they're important to keep in mind. So there's 3 sort of pieces of data inside Google Analytics I like to look at when people say to me, let's think about how the website is doing and evaluate it. I'm going to look at average session duration, pages per session, and site speed. And what this really has to do with is the amount of time people spend on the website, how deep they go into the website, and then how well the website is loading on different devices. So I think these 3 things are key because from a usability perspective, to me, Google does track these things to understand whether or not your website is just user-friendly, whether or not people are going to whether or not they are actually enjoying their experience is somewhat interpreted through many other variables, but I feel also through these variables that we can easily see in our system. So, and I see your comment, Allison. I'm so glad this is helpful. But yeah, so I want you to think about this. And there's 2 ways to sort of have a perspective on this. One, when you get to your overview on your Google Analytics under audience, you're going to get a very broad number for these types of things, right? You're going to see for the whole website, the average session duration is only 1 minute and 5 seconds. And the pages per session are 2.3. And, those types of broader views matter, but it also matters to take these 2 things, the average length of a website visit and the average number of pages that a visitor views, and to look at those from a landing page perspective. Because really, I might have some pages that people don't need to spend a lot of time on. And I'll have other pages that I really wanted them to stay and read the whole thing. I'll have, some visitors come to the website and they might hit one page and they get exactly what they need and they leave. So maybe I have a landing page where I want you to sign up for our newsletter and, or download something for free. I might not really care if you go surfing throughout my site as long as you sign up for my free download or whatever it is I want you to do. So sometimes the goal of a visitor is to come to one page, complete an action, and it's simple, easy, and done. Other times we really are getting people into the website so that we can drive them deeper into the website, to learn more information, to explore an option that we're giving them, to, dig deeper into a service or a product. So I think especially with these two pieces of data, just remember, you may evaluate them in a general sort of bigger perspective about how your whole website is doing overall and have some goals there. But you might also it might be more important for you to look at the individual pages themselves under behavior and really understand if each page of your website is serving a purpose that's helpful to you and can actually help you grow in some way. And keep in mind, if you have a larger website, you have to prioritize what pages you're looking at. You can't evaluate all of them. So could you talk a little bit about that, Justin? I know you all have worked on some really big websites. Mm-hmm. So I know you mentioned, looking at things that are already performing well and kind of evaluating them. Are there any other ways that you sort of prioritize with the client what kind of, either new content that they want to be building or potentially existing content that they want to kind of really focus on getting that to get more exposure?
There's a lot of different things we do, and we're actually in the middle of two pretty big projects right now, so it's top of mind, so I can share some examples. Yeah. We have 2 clients right now, actually 3, 2 that really jump out because they have really big websites. Some of them have multiple websites, and one of them is already ranking for, I think, over 30,000 different keywords, and the other one's in the 20,000 range, so that's a lot of data. So you might ask, how the heck can we possibly prioritize strategy for a site that large? And we have to go at it from a couple of different angles in order to get to a real strategy. Here's a few things that we're doing. One, we are doing ranking reports on their top 5 competitive websites to see what is their competition ranking for. And we'll look through that and we'll compare it to lists of topics that they've said that they want to be known for. And so if we can find where their competitors are ranking well for keywords that they're not ranking for, it may give us inspiration for content strategies and content topics and ways to do content that they can learn from. We also are looking at, I looked at the top, at all the keywords that one of these clients ranked for in the top 30. And basically what I'm doing is looking at a keyword. We know how many times it's searched, and we know where they currently rank. And we can organize that spreadsheet, which is 30,000 items, organized by where they currently rank, and then secondarily by how many searches the word has. So the first 30 or 50 words are they're all number 1 for, but it's organized by how many times it's searched. So at the top, it shows the things that they rank number 1 for, where there's tons of search. And at the bottom of that list is things that are not searched very often. And then as soon as it goes to number 2, it starts with the highest again. So what I do is I go down that list and I start around where the keywords where they're ranked like number 5 or number 6. That's an example of a keyword where they're probably not getting very much traffic because they aren't high enough, but they're on the first page. Google knows that they're an authority on the subject. So additional content or better content might move them up. So I look at those and I scroll for an hour through that list and say, and I tag, I make a little note in the rows of the keywords I think align with what they've indicated they want to be known for. And so sometimes it's words that are very close to their branded language. We think, okay, maybe if they improve their SEO, they'll show up higher for this word, or it's something that's a related topic. And then we survey our clients and we get lists of things that they want to be known for, and we do independent research on those topics because they're probably not ranking for many of them yet. And then we just pick, using the same strategy, we pick keywords we think that they might like. And then the last thing is I look for themes, because if I can find some themes, then I can create strategic initiatives. So some themes I've come up with recently for one of our clients is list articles of companies. Like one of our clients is B Corp or B Lab, and there's different categories that they might want to be known for. People looking for sustainable companies in different business categories. If they can create lists they could rank higher for those type of keywords. Another example would be funds or organizations who give funding to those kind of companies. Those kind of lists are being searched for. They don't have those list articles yet. Those list articles would help. Another category would be data and metrics. There's a bunch of data and metrics that one of our clients has 500 definitions of data metric terms on their site, but they have very short definitions right now. And they rank like number 20 to number 50 for most of those terms, but they would rather rank in the first page. So we're going to pick the ones that are best and suggest that they take those short definitions and make them into really robust educational content pieces worthy of first page position, whereas right now they're short 100 to 200 words. They're not worthy of the first page. So, and then what we'll do is we'll give them, we'll also survey them and ask them to rank words. After we come up with a narrowed list, when we come up with the top 100 or 200, we might say, on a scale of 1 to 100, how important is this word? And then we'll get averages of a few of their staff, and we'll say, okay, here's the top 20. Now let's come up with a plan for each one. It might fit into these other types of strategies that were kind of the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. So it takes a lot of thinking and work and several months of data analysis to get to that.
Yeah, that's an awesome example, though, because, even though I know a lot of people who come to the digital drop-in don't always have websites that big, I think, you can continuously apply it. If you start early when your website is smaller, I think you actually position yourself over time as you grow to be able to kind of really be doing that work in an extremely effective way, so I think that's really awesome. So the last thing I just want to mention is website speed, and then we're going to get to a question from Claire. But website speed, I really want to, like I said, Google is the top search engine. It is the driver of most search engine traffic to websites in the United States. And they are a harsh taskmaster about website speed these days. As a web designer, I have a really hard time meeting their standards, honestly, and still doing really fun designs, mostly because of JavaScript. But essentially, I think it's really important that you pay attention to your site speed. And when you have pages that are doing well in Google, it's especially important to pay attention to how fast they're loading and to make sure that you know that they're loading fast on both desktops and tablets and smartphones. So again, even though this is a little abstract when it comes to quantifying SEO success in general, I think we really do know that Google has some pretty high standards. Their preference would be that all website pages load in 1 to 3 seconds. And like I said, there are some things on websites that typically just don't load that fast. But, I think it's important to be aware of like how close or far away you are from their standard. So I know when I build websites, especially because I've built websites for a lot of artists, we have some pages that feature their artwork that sometimes just are slightly slower. So they might be loading at 4 or 5 seconds. Sometimes maybe 6 is kind of my threshold where I start to feel stressed out. But essentially, we try to be okay with not every single page of the website all the time loading as fast as possible. But the really key pages that we feel we want to rank, we do put a lot of energy into making sure that they're loading fast and that they work really well on every device that's accessing them. So something to think about. Now, the question Claire had was, my business is ranked on page 1 of Google, but not showing up on Yahoo. Is it important to rank on page 1 for many search engines? If so, which ones? She didn't think this would fit today, but I think this is a great question. Mm-hmm. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, we, like, as Sarah was just mentioning, Google is a strict taskmaster, and we feel like our clients should focus on Google for the most part, as far as text-based search engines go. There's an argument to be made that if you're an e-commerce company, you might be investing in some Amazon optimization. If you're really into video, you'd be doing more on YouTube optimization. But if you're looking for just generic search results, Google is, I don't know the latest data, but looking at the example you showed earlier, it was like 90% or more Google for that brewing website. And 90% seems high, but when I started this company 7 or 8 years ago. We would often quote that Google had about 70% of the market, and everyone else was 30%, and everyone else was like hundreds of other search engines, and then Yahoo and Microsoft and Bing were like a total of 20%, and there's it was at the time 3 different search engines, and Yahoo was for a long time number 2, and it seems to have faded quite a bit from the search engine conversation. So I wouldn't, unless you're in the niche where you need to be in video, or you need to be, in Amazon.com, those are different algorithms. You should focus your search algorithm work on Google. It's the most comprehensive algorithm, and if you follow its guidelines, you should do fairly well on other basic search engines.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, I track out what market share Google is holding on a regular basis when I'm teaching classes. And so typically what we see is that Google holds somewhere between, I would say, 75 and 80% of the search market share on desktops, and has for the last 10 years pretty much. And that other sort of 20 to 25% is held by many, many, many other search engines. So Yahoo and Bing together, typically in the last 10 years, have never crossed over, I think 20% is probably forgiving. Usually it was more like 14 if you combined them. So it's a very small piece of the pie. When we look at mobile devices, Google actually is at more like 90 to 95% of the market share. So Google really dominates in the mobile world big time. So I don't think you need to worry too much about those other search engines unless, like Justin said, you are really trying to get video content out there, or you are doing product feeds and product optimization and things like that. If we're just looking at general website authority though, and showing up in Google results overall, then I think, or search engine results overall, then I think Google sort of tops the list. And most search engines are following suit to them. Now, that being said, there are simple tools that you can use to help understand how well you're doing on something like Yahoo or Bing. And, you can explore that. If you're not showing up at all on Yahoo, that seems a little strange if you're doing well on Google. So you might want to explore that a little bit, but that's what we're going to get into in just a moment, some tools that you can use to do that. So again, just going back to our idea of session duration, pages per session, and site speed. I've also outlined in Google Analytics where you can see this stuff. So if you go to audience and overview, you'll see your average session duration for the whole site, and you'll see the pages per session. Again, you can go down into the behavior section and look at your content and look at this from a page by page perspective instead. And then if you go to behavior, site speed, you'll see a number of different options. And the two most important sections to me are page timings and speed suggestions. So the page timings are going to show you each page and how fast it's loading. And then speed suggestions is actually some technical things that Google will tell you you could do in order to speed up your website pages. So if you work with a designer or developer, you might want to explore that. So Google Analytics is the basic tool that I think lots of people are using. But of course, in SEO, as Justin pointed out at the beginning of the call, most SEO professionals, when we're looking at how to really help a client understand the authority of their website, we're going to use a specialty tool of some kind. Most often than not, we're paying a monthly fee for that tool. And I would say they usually range somewhere between $100 and $200 a month. I know that's a lot for a small business or even a medium-sized business unless SEO is a huge focus for them. So I do want to encourage you that a lot of these tools have some sort of free trial so that you can get to know the tool, or they have some sort of kind of way of testing out the tools before you actually purchase them. And that might be worthwhile, especially because you don't want to pay for a tool that you don't feel is intuitive for you and doesn't give you the information that you want. This is my list of sort of my favorite tools that I use across the board. And they are, I would say sitting at the top of most SEO people's lists. If you are not using the Google Search Console, that is a free tool that's a companion to Google Analytics. And I would definitely suggest that you explore how to set that up. You can actually verify it with your Google Analytics code. So if you already have Google Analytics set up under your Google account, you can go ahead and set up the Google Search Console for your website as well. I think if I was going to highlight which of these tools are my absolute favorite, it's the three at the top of the list. So Moz, Ahrefs, and SEMrush. I have been using for many years, and Ahrefs is actually something Justin's agency kind of really helped turn me on to because I was familiar with them, but there was some great discussions about some of their tools that are really powerful. So you can click any of these links to explore these tools. And inside of these tools, you're going to see some key things that you're able to understand about your website that I think really matter. So the first thing is link analysis and backlink tracking. So again, one of the things I think people have to start thinking about when it comes to website authority and search engine optimization is that it's not just about keywords, and it's not just about content and how big your website is and how often you update it. All of those things are important, but the other piece, like the other half of the formula or the other half of the pie to being really authoritative is having backlinks or links that come from other websites and point to your website. Basically giving your website credibility of some kind. And so this is something that is not only difficult to do, link building is a process that really can't be automated very well without risking some stuff in the SEO world and Google world these days. So it's something that has to be done pretty authentically and takes some time and effort and strategy. But I also think tracking this is, difficult. In the Google Search Console, you can often see the number of links that point to your website, and that's free. But with specialty tools, you don't just see the number of links, but sometimes you get to quantify how quality those links are. What are the power of those links? And that's because not every website is equal. So a link from a media website, a link from a government website, a link from a university website, a link from a really big industry website where lots of people go to visit and get information, a link from a website that's someone who does something similar to you. All of those types of links can be more valuable than having just a random link on just a website directory, right? Where you're just listed with many other businesses. So not all websites are equal. Therefore, not all links are equal. And so the higher quality links that you can get, the stronger and more powerful those links are going to be in building your authority. So that's where link analysis, not just the backlink tracking itself, can be really valuable. And also, most of these tools are going to give you the total number of links, but they're also going to show you how many new links you're getting on a regular basis. And if any links have gone away, they're going to show you that information as well. So again, when SEO is a really top priority, if you're doing this kind of work, you need a tool to actually track that so that you know what's happening there. The other things you're going to find in these tools is something called domain authority and page authority. And so I wanted to just clearly kind of explain exactly what these are. Domain authority is really about the fact that your domain name has power. And I was wondering, Justin, can you talk a little bit about, because I know we've had some live calls before where you dug into this a little bit, but kind of what is the power that the domain has, in authority overall?
So the domain authority is a score that different tools use. And I added the third bullet on this slide last night or yesterday. It's really designed to try to mimic the way that the search engines give certain domains higher authority scores, thus allowing them really to qualify to rank for more competitive keywords. In some ways, it's a combination of trust, age of the website, size of the website, number of links. Those things all factor in. And so the numbers, usually most platforms will have numbers ranging from 1 to 100. 100 being like a Facebook, a Google, an Apple.com, a 1,
ABC.
Yeah, a 1, and maybe those sites don't have 100, but they're like in the 80s or 90s, and then the 100 usually is sort of the benchmark of what the most authoritative website in the world has currently, and everything else is compared against that. That's sort of the standard, and then you have to understand that it's not a linear thing. It doesn't take it takes maybe 10 times as much authority to move up from an 80 to a 90, and then another 10 times as much to move from a 90 to a 100. So each level might be 10 times as much work. So it doesn't, if you do a bunch of work and you go from 1 to a 5, the same amount of work again, you might go from a 5 to a 6. and you do that same amount of work again, you might not move at all. You might have to do 100 or 1,000 times as much work to move from 21 to a 22 as you did from a move from a 1 to a 2. And that's just sort of the nature of how the math works. But it's called a logarithmic curve. It takes more work as they get farther up the curve. But what it really does is allow you to tell, like, if you search for something and you have a tool set up on your site, on your search engine, to show you what the authority is of each domain that's ranking on the first page, you can say, okay, am I even in the ballpark? If you search for something like basketball shoes or something, or really competitive keyword like political candidates, or something that's like every millions of websites are trying to go after, you will see authorities in the 80s and 90s on the homepage and not much else. Mm-hmm. And so if your site's got an authority score of a 30, it doesn't really matter how great your SEO is, you'll never show up. So you'll be on page 50 or 100 or not even there on the search results if you do a perfectly well optimized piece of content. So what we do is we help our clients figure out what words are currently showing up where the results are sites that are in their range within, where there's some sites on the page lower than them, or where there's some sites that are within 5 to 10 points higher. And if there's sites that are slightly better in authority, but you can do better content, you might be able to overcome them. Mm-hmm. But if they're way ahead of you, like 20 points or more ahead of you in authority, you need to build your authority first. Yeah. And like I said, if you're going from 50 to 60, that might take you a lot of work to go from a 50 to a 60 to get into the competitive landscape if it's a more competitive word.
Yeah. So thanks for that. That really helps explain, sort of the details of how they come up with this. And so domain authority and page authority both, to answer Lauren's question, what's coming through here, you have to use one of the specialty tools that I mentioned, Lauren. So, Justin was just describing how some of the tools will give you even like a way to look at other websites. So one of the examples of that is Moz. They have a free tool called the Moz Bar, and that allows you to see different data about how other websites as well as your own are ranking. And then if you signed up for a free site or a free account with Moz, they would actually let you use their link explorer. You would plug in your domain, and then it would give you domain authority, right? So you have to have a specialty tool to do that, which is why I mentioned those at the beginning. So page authority is essentially similar to domain authority, except that it now has to do with the individual pages of your website and how well they're performing. So again, each tool is going to be slightly different, but it really is helping you understand what is the authoritativeness, because not all pages on your website are the same, mm-hmm. right? So
and the main difference is the age of the page and how many outside sites link to it. So it's rare, but it's possible for a website to have an interior page that has a higher authority than the homepage. Most websites get most of their links to the homepage, people wanting to link directly to that website, that brand. But sometimes a website creates an amazing tool or a viral piece of content that gets thousands of links. Maybe those thousands of links are way more than the homepage had. If that happens, then you want to have an SEO strategy that makes sure that high authority page on your site is optimized and is linking to the other important pages, because that's how the authority moves. It moves by interlinking, internally linking between pages. And so most sites prioritize their homepage to link to the most important sections, both from a user flows perspective, but also from a SEO strategy. But there's occasionally a situation where maybe an interactive micro page on the site, like a campaign page or a contest page or something, has done really well. One really great guide or something has gotten so many links that it's gotten more than the homepage.
So again, you can use different tools to quantify this. And just be clear, like I said, each tool kind of has their own way, like Justin said, of mimicking how the search engines are pulling things like page and domain authority together. And, you might not get the exact same number on every tool, is my point. So keep that in mind if you're using multiple tools at once. The other thing that sites like SEMrush and Ahrefs and Moz do is they usually provide some sort of site health or site audits. And this is where the system really goes through your website and helps pull out any more technical issues with the site. So depending on how much control you have over your website, what things you can and can't change, and whether or not you work with somebody who has access to the code and can adjust the code, there's going to be different things that you can do and maybe that you can't do that come from these types of site audits. But the main things that I think they really go through is the structure of your website. Is it really searchable? Can it be indexed and crawled well, especially by Google bots? Can they really see all the content and understand what's going on there? And then a lot of these tools also will help you identify any security issues. So if you ever have hacking or malware or something negative like that, these tools will help you understand that that's happening. And those are really important alerts to get. The Google Search Console gives you this for free. Google Search Console is a free tool, like I mentioned before, and they don't do more advanced things like domain and page authority, but they do have a way to help you make sure that your website can be indexed and crawled by Google, and it will actually alert you if there are any bad code situations, which is basically hacking, malware, bad code injections, things like that. So it can be really, really helpful to have this as a way of making sure that your website is structurally sound. And especially if the person who built it was not an SEO expert, these tools will help you really kind of identify any issues with the original design and coding. The other thing that these tools are going to give you is what we call on-page SEO checks. So some of you have been through our program or are currently in our program, and you may have already watched the Writing for SEO classes and how to optimize your pages for better search engine ranking. And a lot of the things that we suggest in those classes, things like meta titles and descriptions, headings, and different things that can help your page be clearer to Google and also to your visitors. A lot of these systems will go through and kind of highlight anything that they see that's either inconsistent or problematic. So if your meta titles and descriptions aren't unique and they are not, written the correct length, if you have pages on your website where the same content is being displayed, which is called duplicate content, or if there's broken links throughout the website, usually these things are going to get flagged. And again, these are structural issues, but they're also usability issues. So you want to make sure that you pay attention to anything that gets highlighted there. All of the specialty SEO tools also have built in a lot of different tools for keyword ranking and position tracking. So you'll be able to see what keyword phrases you're ranking for and the average position that you hold for those phrases. So that keyword column that I mentioned in analytics that isn't very useful because they're no longer tracking 98% of the data. This is a big reason why you want to have either a free tool like Google Search Console or one of these other specialty tools, especially when SEO is a top priority, because this way you can really put in the keywords that you're aiming to get more organic search traffic for and higher rankings for. And you can see over time where you started. Were you ranking number 6 on page 1? Were you ranking number 14 on page 2? And over time, are those rankings increasing? And of course, you can also go back into those landing pages and see if you're getting more organic search over time as well. So those two things together really help you see that the work you've done to optimize your website for different topics and phrases is working. Finally, these tools are going to give you also the ability to do competitive analysis. So as Justin pointed out, one of the most important things that you have to do is really understand if you're going to target a particular topic or phrase, is it really possible for you to achieve a page 1 ranking for that topic or phrase? Is it too broad? Is it too competitive? So you want to just think about that, right? Sometimes we set goals and we don't realize that those goals are not necessarily going to be attainable. Right? So that's something that you just really want to keep in mind. You don't want to set goals that would be really, really difficult to attain. And so you're going to be able to go into your tool and really see for the different phrases you're targeting, what kind of real competition do you have? And do you want to talk about that just for a minute, Justin? Because I think for some people, how do they know like it's not possible? Like I said, can you just give a quick overview of that?
I mean, kind of what I was talking about just a minute ago with the authority scores of what's on the first page of Google. If if you have the Ahrefs Explorer tool turned on, it's a plugin that comes with the Ahrefs account. You can see the domain authority, the page authority, and the number of links of every single page on the first page of Google. And if there are no sites on the first page that have a similar authority, or pages that have less than like 5 incoming links, and like the page authorities that are in line with what your site has for its main pages, then there's nothing you can do immediately to show up on the first page. But if you see sites that are lower than you, if you see things like PDF documents or a lot of similar sized companies on the first page, then there's a really good chance if you do a great content piece and get a few links to it and prioritize it in your internal navigation and link to it from other pages on your older page on your website, that you will make your way to the first page pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Great. So thanks so much. So yeah, just keep that in mind, because I think a lot of times people start doing SEO and setting goals before they've actually done a proper competition analysis. And so it's really key to take a look at that and make sure, that what you hope to attain is actually attainable in the time frame in which you need it to happen. But we are right at 1:00, so I want to go ahead and make sure we wrap up and let everyone get back to their Wednesday afternoon. If you have any other questions, I will stay on the chat for another couple minutes, so please feel free to let us know if you have anything else you'd like to follow up on. And like I said, you should soon be receiving in your inbox a copy of these slides as well as a copy of the recording. And if you have any questions about our upcoming classes and events, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much for attending today, and hopefully we'll see you for our next JB Media Digital Drop-In.